everyone, and welcome to the Stitch Sessions. I'm really excited. We're in a new month and we are headed towards the holiday season. So let the games begin. More fun crochet projects that are going to be a little bit focused towards the holiday season, but you can certainly create these for any cold weather occasions. So this is one of the first ones I want to introduce to you guys, and this is the Holly Berry Holiday Scarf. And I am very much into the Victorian Christmas theme this year for the holidays. So I think this is just a fantastic colorway for it. And especially with the texture it creates, I just think it screams Victorian Christmas. So with this scarf, it's really simple to make, but you are learning a couple of new stitches. So in the texture of this scarf, you're going to notice that we are using the linked single crochet stitch, as well as what I am calling the linked grit stitch. Now, I actually, again, found this stitch on one of my favorite YouTubers. Her name is Naughty Crochet. And she always comes up with these really great textured stitches, but she's not really great at telling you what the name of the stitch is. So I will put a link for the tutorial that she shows you how to create this stitch in the description box down below if you want to check it out. She has a really great channel. So I decided to take this stitch and incorporate it into the scarf. Now I call it the linked grit stitch because you are linking it, each of the stitches from one to the other, very similarly to maybe what you would do in a Trinity stitch or the linked single crochet, which we work on in this project here. Now, if you haven't worked on the grit stitch itself yet, do not fret. We have a few tutorials coming up using that stitch as well. So you'll get exposed to a lot of new fun crochet stitches. So in the meantime, those are the two stitches we used for this scarf. It is a lovely, lightweight yet cozy, and the pretty little berry-like stitches create this beautiful scalloped edging there, and I just think it's just gorgeous. And then of course with the colorway using the cream colored and the burgundy color, it just will be perfect for a Victorian inspired Christmas scarf. So without further ado, let's just grab all of our materials and let's get stitching. Oh, and before we go to the craft table, if you are new here, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. To my regular gang, you know I love seeing you here every week. Now, I do invite you to press that subscribe button if you haven't already so that you stay up to date every time I upload a brand new tutorial, which is every Wednesday morning. And most especially over the next several weeks as we lead up to the holidays, I've got a few extra little bonus treats coming up for you guys. So make sure to do that. And if you do like this tutorial, please remember to give me a thumbs up. And also leave me a comment if you have any suggestions or questions. That helps me to know that I'm on the right track with the types of projects that you want to continue seeing, especially as we gear up towards the end of the year. Now let's get stitching up our scarf. Okay, so the yarn that I used for this scarf was the Bernat yarn, and I used two different colors. So this one is the Bernat Premium, which I love their premium yarns. They're just always so lovely and soft. So this one definitely gave me Victorian Christmas vibes. And the color of this one is called Aran Sparkle. This comes in 142 gram skein, which has 258 yards or 236 meters. And for the contrasting color, I used this beautiful kind of wine color, which is actually called burgundy. Now, this skein comes in a 198 gram ball, and which also has 329 meters or 360 yards. This should be plenty for your scarf. Okay, so that's the yarn. These are both considered a medium 4-weight yarn. I will say though, this one that has the sparkles, it will feel like it's spun a little bit tighter. Like this one is definitely got a lot more lax softness to it. So just be aware that it will feel slightly different. And that is why I'm going to use quite a large hook for this project. I am actually going to use an 8mm hook, which is known as an L or a size N. And that way the stitches will sit really loose and cushy and nice and soft. So that's the hook I'm going to be using. Make sure that you also have a darning needle to sew in your ends at the end and a handy pair of scissors to snip off your yarn. So let's get started. So I'm going to be beginning with my burgundy color first to create a nice anchoring contrast on each end of the scarf. Okay, so we're going to begin by placing a slip knot on our hook. And this project is going to be worked lengthwise. So my scarf has a length of approximately 60 inches, which is 5 feet long. So we are going to create quite a long chain to begin. So for my project, I chained 201. So you're just going to yarn over and pull through for 201 chains. And this gives me a nice relaxed double wrap of the scarf and can still sit nice and loosely hanging over my shoulders. So go ahead and do your length of chains. Mine is going to be 201, and I'll meet back up with you when you finished your chain. Okay, once you have 200 chains, we are going to be ready to begin row 1. So we are going to be creating our little berry type of stitch in the very first row. And I call this like a linked grit stitch. And if you haven't seen the grit stitch yet, I do have a project coming up shortly that is going to be using the grit stitch. But in the meantime, I call this the linked grit stitch, and we're going to be using a lot of linked stitches in this project. So what you're going to do is you're going to skip the first chain, and into the second chain, you're going to place a slip stitch. Okay. Now from here, what we're going to do is we're going to yarn over, and you're going to go back into that same stitch where you just slip stitched into, and you're going to pull up a loop. Then you're going to yarn over again and go into the next stitch, insert your hook, and pull up another loop. So at the moment, you are going to have 5 loops on your hook. You'll then yarn over and pull through all 5 of those loops. And that right there is your first linked grit stitch. So from there, you're going to go into the very next stitch and you are going to slip stitch. And that slip stitch is what crunches it down a little bit. And if I turn it over, that creates that little puffed look. And as you do a few more, it'll become much more apparent. So then we yarn over and back into the same stitch we slip stitched into, you will pull up a loop. Then you'll yarn over and go into the next stitch and pull up another loop. Again, you'll have 5 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through all 5 loops. And then into the next stitch, you want to slip stitch. So the slip stitch is what anchors that grit stitch down. Okay, so again, you've got that really pretty little puffed berry-like stitch. Now there is a berry stitch, and you may be wondering why I just didn't use the berry stitch. And I like this one because it actually puffed out a little bit more than the traditional berry stitch. Again, there will be a tutorial coming up using the berry stitch, so stay tuned for all of those new stitch tutorials coming up. So I'll do one more with you. We're going to yarn over, go back into the slip stitched chain, pull up a loop, yarn over and go into the next chain. Okay, then you'll yarn over and pull through all 5 of those loops and make sure to slip stitch into the very next stitch. Okay, so there you have it. And that is what you're going to do all the way down to the end of your 200 chains. Now I did say 200, you will have 201 to begin, but remember that we start working into the second chain from the hook. So at the end of row 1, you are actually going to have 200 stitches, and this is the stitch count that you should have remaining throughout the whole project. All right, so row 1, you know what to do. Go all the way down to the end, and I will meet you there when we're ready to go on to a row 2 and change your color. Okay, once you've done that last little crunch stitch there, you're gonna have 1 stitch left, and a lot of times people would just put a slip stitch to even it out, but I like to just actually place a full half double crochet in there. And for me, I just like the way it ends off the row. But if you want to even it out with a slip stitch, you can, okay? So once you're done your first row, so your berries, little berries, look like this, okay? So what happens is when you're working it, you're actually creating the back side, because when you slip stitch, the berries pop out on the other side there, okay? Just like that. So now we're gonna change colors, so we're gonna snip off our yarn. You don't need to leave too long of a tail. And you're gonna fasten off like that. And now we're gonna introduce our sparkle yarn. Okay, so we have it here, just like that. Now you can begin by placing a slip knot on your hook, but for this particular project, I'm not going to. Okay, so once I've fastened off my end here, what we want to do when we're changing colors, for row 1 only, do you see how these little berries kind of have a little bump to them on this edge? The straight edge, that's our initial chain row. So because this row 1 is going to be the trim, one of the trims on the edge of our scarf, we want this little bump effect to sit on the outside. So what you want to do is when we introduce our next color, which is that Aran Sparkle, we're not going to continue from the same edge. What you're going to do is you're actually going to turn your work here, and you are going to work along the bottom where that initial chain row is, okay? And that allows for that little bump part to stay nicely on the outside edge, which creates a really neat little scalloped edging. Okay, so you want to find that very first stitch there. Maybe a little tricky to see. So you have the scallop, there's the chain 1, and that right there, I'm hoping you guys can see that. I know the burgundy yarn is not the greatest for camera. So I'm going to insert my hook there. I want to make sure I have a couple of loops. Right there. And that is where I am going to now introduce my next color. You can certainly place a slip knot on your hook, but for this project, I'm trying to keep the lines as clean as possible. So I am just going to hook it on by pulling it through, and then I'm going to chain 1 to secure my work. And then I'm just going to work over that tail. Okay. And there we have it. So the very first stitch, so this is now row 2, is we are going to work the linked single crochet stitch. So lots of linked stitches in this project. So you're going to go right back into that very first stitch, and you're just going to simply place a single crochet. And like I said, I'm going to work over that tail. If that confuses you, you can always sew your tails in at the very end. So there we go. My first stitch is a single crochet. And that is how you're always going to begin these linked single crochet rows. You always want to begin with 1 single crochet regular stitch. And now you want to find the left leg of your stitch. So see these vertical loops? These are called legs, and that is the left one. You're going to insert there first before you go on to the next stitch in order to insert your hook and pull up a loop. Okay, so you can see I went in through the chain. Some people might go through the space. I am not a fan of doing that for this particular project. I'm going to try and go through all of the chains. Okay, so then you'll yarn over. You have 3 loops on that hook. You'll pull through all 3. Okay, and that's your first linked single crochet. You can see that left leg slants a little bit, and that's what gives it that interesting texture. So let's do it again. So here's the left leg. You're going to insert your hook there first, then go into the next stitch, or in this case, the next chain. Insert your hook in order to pull up a loop. And see, now you have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay, I'll do that one more time. Here's the left leg. Insert the hook there first, then into the very next stitch, which is right there, which is our chain stitch. Can be a little tricky to see. And then you'll pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. Okay, so now we've done a few linked single crochets. You can see how that left leg gets slanted. It's so pretty. You guys will remember this stitch from the beach tote we did this summer. We used this stitch along with the linked single crochet dishcloth. And of course, I will leave links for those for you in the description box down below if you want to give those a peek. All right, in the meantime, this is what you're going to do for all of row 2. Into every single stitch, you're going to place a linked single crochet stitch. So go ahead and do that all the way to the end. And once you get to the end of your row, okay, I will meet back up with you there to talk about how to take you onto a row number 3. I'm finally at the end of row 2, and I'm going into my very last stitch. So remember, that's that first stitch we did there of that row. Pull through and all 3. Okay, so row 2 looks like this from the front. So it's got this cool little kind of slanted look, and this is what it looks like on the back. Okay, I love the contrast of these colors. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to repeat row 2 for 2 more rows. So row 2, 3, and 4 will be the exact same thing. So what you're going to do when you reach the end is you will chain 1 and you're going to turn your work. Okay, and then into that very first stitch right there, you're going to single crochet. So that's always the first stitch of the row, okay? And then you continue with that stitch that we've been doing, the linked single crochet. So you go into the very first, that left leg there, insert, and then into the next stitch you insert, and then you pull up your loop. 3 loops, pull through. Okay, so remember that first one always kind of gets slanted inward a little bit, but don't panic. Keep your stitching relaxed. That's the main thing. Okay, so it's pretty easy. I mean, this project is actually, I find it extra relaxing because it doesn't tax your brain too much. And it's just repetitive enough that I feel like I'm getting really good at the stitch, and yet I can just zone out a little bit and enjoy my crochet. Okay, so I'm just doing a few here so you can see how it looks all in one color. Okay, look at how squishy and yummy that is. I love it. Okay, so that's front of it, and that's the back, which now will become reversible. Okay, so row 3 is the same as row 2. Then you chain 1, turn your work. Row 4 is also the same. So once you've finished row 4, you're going to snip off your yarn, and we're going to reintroduce our burgundy color with a different stitch though. So I'll meet you back here in a little bit. Okay, I've completed row 4, and my work is looking like this. So it's got this really beautiful texture, and it has this really nice stretch to it as well, which I really like. So what I'm going to do is I am now going to snip off my sparkle yarn here. And as usual, I'm going to pull that through. And now I'm going to reintroduce my burgundy yarn. So I'm going to take my burgundy yarn, and I'm going to do what I did in the previous time I changed colors. I'm just going to insert my hook into that last stitch there, and I'm just going to hook on the new color and pull it through. And then I'm just going to chain 1 to secure that yarn there. And now I'm going to turn my work. So I always want to pick up where I left off just to keep things nice and consistent. Actually, this time, instead of working over the short tails, I'm going to just leave these to the side because I want to make sure that this is nice and clear to you guys as to what I'm doing. First thing you're going to do is you are going to slip stitch. Just like that, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to yarn over and you're going to go back into that stitch you just slip stitched into and you're going to pull up a loop. Then you're going to yarn over and go into the next stitch and pull up another loop. So you should have 5 loops on your hook at the moment. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through all of them. Then what you're going to do is you are going to slip stitch into the next stitch. And really be careful not to slip stitch too tightly because we want to be able to work back into that stitch. Then we repeat. Yarn over, go back into the slip stitched stitch. It's a lot of words there. Then you will yarn over and go into the next stitch. Okay, 5 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 5. Then into the next stitch, you slip stitch. Okay, so you can see it's creating this pretty little bump stitch. Here we go. We'll do it one more time. You're going to yarn over, go back into this current stitch that you've just worked out of, pull up a loop, yarn over, go into the next stitch, and pull up a loop. That's the thing with this sparkle yarn. Sometimes the sparkles get caught. I have 5 loops, and then I pull through all 5 and slip stitch. And that is basically what you're going to do all the way to the end of your row. You know what to do. Slip stitch and link, slip stitch, link, slip stitch, link. And you're going to do that all the way to the end of your row. So this is row 5, and this is where we're creating our little berries here. Okay, when you come to the end and you have 1 stitch left, I've just finished doing that linked stitch. Instead of doing the slip stitch, which you normally would do after that, you're actually just going to place a half double crochet into that stitch. Okay, and that'll just kind of even things out nicely like that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to snip off our yarn and we're going to go back to our sparkle yarn. Basically what we're going to do is we are now going to repeat row 2, 3, and 4 and then go back to 5. So from row 2 to row 5, that is basically what we're going to repeat to then create the width of our scarf. Now I plan on repeating this another 3 times. So now what I would do is I'm going to pick up my Aran Sparkle here. And I'm going to do exactly what I did before. Insert my hook, pull the yarn through, and chain 1 to secure. Now I'm turning my work, and we're going to go back to doing our linked single crochets. So at the beginning, you always start with a regular single crochet. You're going to go back into that first stitch, and you are going to single crochet. Okay, then from here you link that left leg there and then you find the very next stitch. So it might be a little tricky because some of them are slip stitches. That's why we didn't want to do them too tightly. Then you pull through and you've linked it. Okay, so again, leg and then find the next stitch, which is right there. I'm working over my tails here and pull through. So it's the same thing we did in row 2. Okay, so you're all set to repeat now, and I'm going to meet back up with you once you've finished repeating rows 2 through 5 another 3 times. Okay guys, I have completed 4 rounds or 4 repeats of our stitch pattern. And I am so happy with how this project came out. And now you can really see why I did not want to carry the yarn. I wanted all the color blocks to be evenly nice and clean there. Now, if you would like, you can certainly add tassels to the end of this. And I did debate doing it, but I really just like that clean edge look. And I found that, you know, for the Victorian era, a lot of simplicity was the key as well. And just love that detailing in that little berry-like effect of the stitch. And it just came out perfect in my opinion. Now, of course, if you wanted to make yours wider, you could certainly do that. My width ended up being a total of 6.5 inches, or approximately 17 centimeters. And because it is kind of chunky and cozy, for me, that's plenty. But if you wanted to add maybe another 4 rows to make it a little thicker, you most certainly could. And I just love, love, love how the sparkle comes out. The cream color of it just picks up the burgundy of the other color just so great. And I love it. It really, really screams Victorian scarf to me. So there it is. And they look like little holly berries. And that's why I call it the holly berry holiday scarf. So guys, I hope that you found this fairly easy and interesting to do. So simple, but again, introducing you guys to brand new stitches, which I'm always looking to explore. And just to show you that anybody can do this, even if you are more of a beginner crocheter. Now remember, if you have any questions, please do leave them for me in the comment box down below. Questions, suggestions, anything at all. Or you can always reach me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. And make sure to come and visit me over on the website at crochetcrafty.com and sign up for my newsletter. I have a monthly newsletter, and every month I give away a free written pattern as a gift to you. So make sure to sign up for that. And if you like this type of project, make sure to give me a thumbs up, especially as we work our way through towards the holiday season. And I'll be sure to continue creating more projects like these. In the meantime, guys, I love having you come along on my crochet journey. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next session. Happy crocheting and take good care. Bye-bye.